Hey, how are we going to scam a free ride today?
My husband had invited me to a fancy steak dinner, and that's when we were out enjoying our meal. While I was in the restroom, I happened to overhear a conversation from my eldest son and his wife. It seemed impossible that they would be at this restaurant, and I reached for the door to ask how they got in. Listening to their conversation, I was speechless. "If we do this, you won't be able to see your son and his wife for a while." I promptly reported my son and daughter-in-law's conversation to my husband and the restaurant staff, and we decided to carry out a plan. The wife of the proprietor of the steakhouse gave us the final confirmation, and my husband and I nodded firmly. "No problem. If you can cooperate, we'd be very grateful." And so, our retaliation against our eldest son and his wife began. My name is Kenya Robertson. My husband Edward and I are an 80-year-old couple enjoying our leisurely lives and retirement. We both enjoy walking, our common hobby. Sometimes I spend the day alone while my husband enjoys painting with friends or chatting with the proprietor of my favorite cafe. Our time was relaxed and carefree. We have a son. His name is Osmond. He must be around 50 now. He's happily married to Nikita, and they live in harmony. His wife is a homemaker, and they didn't have children.
If we have kids, we'll lose our time together. I still want to enjoy my leisurely time with her.
Saying this, the son embraced his wife's shoulders. He was completely smitten with her, as if she were his destined partner. At first, we found their affection endearing, and even understood their desire for time together. But then, my husband and I froze at the daughter-in-law's next words.
"Why not use adoption if we want a child?" I don't want to endure the pain of childbirth.
I was disillusioned by the daughter-in-law's laughing words. I couldn't understand the son's nerves. Laughing along, these two might not be sane. From that point on, we didn't have a close relationship with the son and his wife. I felt like if I got involved anymore, it might strain our relationship. But the slightly distant way we treated each other worked well, and there was never any friction due to differing values or communication challenges. There were no problems in daily life either, and I thought time would continue to flow peacefully. It was during one of these carefree moments that I almost forgot about the whole incident. The problem arose when I went shopping at the supermarket. I felt several eyes on me, and turning around, I noticed several neighbors looking at me and whispering, "Hello, everyone. Out shopping?" Curious about what was going on, I spoke up, but was met with an awkward greeting. In a word, I was being avoided. It was an attitude so blatant that I could feel it instinctively, and it made me question what was happening. Why? The answer was simple. I had just had tea with those very people yesterday. Who would have thought that something like this would happen so suddenly? I wondered if I had done something wrong and stood frozen in place for a while. Suddenly, a man's angry voice echoed through the store from the checkout.
"What are you going to do to take responsibility? I'm asking you."
The loud yelling man made my shoulders jump, and everyone's gaze turned towards him. The store had been filled with lively conversation just a moment ago, but it now fell silent, an eerie change. The only sounds were the continued shouting of the man and the apologies of the supermarket clerk.
We'll replace it right away. Please wait a moment. I don't want the item, you fool. Don't you get that? Just give me a discount.
I turned towards the register, astonished at the man's absurd words, and then, unable to believe who I saw, I momentarily refused to accept reality. Osmond? To my surprise, the person yelling was my eldest son. As soon as I saw him, I rushed over to him. My eldest son noticed me and turned around, greeting me with a calm smile.
Oh, Mom, out shopping?
Despite his earlier yelling, he showed me a friendly smile. I've always thought of him as kind to family and strict with others, but now it seemed he had lost all common sense. I felt that way. It's not about shopping. What are you doing? Yelling like a fool and complaining.
Huh? What do you mean, fool? There was a bug in the cabbage here. I almost ate it without noticing. Complaining is natural, isn't it?
My son must have realized I wasn't just calling out to him but trying to intervene. He immediately changed his attitude, explaining the situation to me in a hostile, quarrelsome tone. His behavior was so domineering that I was bewildered that this was my real son. What's the big deal about 1 or 2 bugs? You could have had it replaced. Why have you been yelling so loudly? Aren't you embarrassed?
Why do I have to be the one to get angry? It's the supermarket's fault, isn't it? They say they'll replace it, but just looking at that cabbage made me feel nauseous from shock. It's not like replacing it solves anything.
The more I tried to stop him, the more my eldest son's words escalated. Contrary to me, who felt so embarrassed that my body trembled under the piercing, painful stares from those around us, my eldest son continued to yell as if he wanted to draw even more attention to himself. It must have been a strategy to make a big fuss and put pressure on the store. If this goes on any further, we might get into trouble with the police. Thinking this, I handed the cabbage to the supermarket clerk for now, also leaving my empty shopping basket, and forcibly dragged my eldest son out of the supermarket.
Mom, what are you doing?
What are you doing is my line. Making such a big fuss over 1 cabbage. What's wrong with you? Dragging my eldest son outside was fine, but calming his angry state was virtually impossible. And I, too, was about to explode with anger at how shameful it was that my son had grown up this way. A full-grown adult arguing loudly in front of the supermarket. Naturally, I sensed that the surrounding stares were gathering. But my anger did not subside, and the argument with my eldest son continued. What's the big deal about a bug on the cabbage? It's proof that it's delicious, isn't it?
Are you out of your mind? If so, Mom, you can eat cabbage with bugs on it every day. What's the point of continuing this trivial argument forever?
Whether she sensed the commotion or was waiting in the car, my eldest son's wife appeared from his car. Seeing her, my eldest son and I stopped our argument, and he hurried over to her, looking very disheveled.
I'm sorry, Nikita. Was I late?
This was the first time I felt repulsed by my irresolute eldest son, who was attracted to his wife. Until now, I hadn't thought anything of it, but my opinion of my eldest son plummeted all at once because of his earlier behavior. You're more than late. Did you get the money properly? For some reason, my eldest son's wife was intimidating. I felt a discomfort I hadn't noticed when I met her before.
No, Mom interfered, so.
Huh? Don't tell me you missed getting it. She looked down on my eldest son as if he were a servant, and her tone was rough. I was at a loss for words at her actions, which were unthinkable for a woman.
I'm sorry. I'll go now and try again. We don't need it. How long are you planning to make us wait? I'm sorry.
Against his harsh wife, my eldest son looked as small as a cat whose neck was grasped. I couldn't find the words to speak. Staring at the two of them in a dazed manner, the wife turned her gaze to me. Mother-in-law, it's been a while.
It seems you've been meddling unnecessarily.
Her tone was cold as she spoke to me, and I felt a sense of irritation in her words. Unable to understand what she meant, I instinctively asked her again. This seemed to further irritate her, and she turned a cold, disdainful gaze at me, looking down on me.
Next time, if you could please not interfere with what we're doing, that would be good.
Inconvenient? Could that complaint be from that child earlier? As I was about to finish, I felt the stifling pressure from my eldest son's wife, forcing me to stop speaking. I felt a terror as though I was being stared down by a wild beast, and I choked on my words.
I told you, didn't I? Never interfere. I won't be responsible for what happens later.
With those threatening words, she took my eldest son, who had bowed his head slightly, and left the scene. Left behind, I could only stand alone in the parking lot watching my eldest son's car leave. Could it be those kids made that complaint on purpose? As they sped away, I reflected on the last conversation I had with my eldest son's wife. It's not a trivial matter. Livelihoods are at stake. Could it mean they are purposely complaining to swindle money? And the way she spoke and her attitude. What was she really? My thoughts were interrupted when I found out the answer the next day. The next day after the quarrel with my eldest son and his wife, a good neighbor came to visit our house. She was quite frantic. What's wrong? So panicky?
Robertson, it's terrible. Your daughter-in-law got into a fight with my husband.
The neighbor was the wife of the proprietor of my favorite cafe. I had been avoiding the neighbors I used to run into at the supermarket, but it seems that my eldest son and his wife showed up there. And just like yesterday, they caused a scene, making the proprietor of my favorite cafe furious. My eldest son filmed the whole scene, and his wife instigated the proprietor of my favorite cafe, creating a hostile atmosphere. I hurriedly called my husband, and together with the neighbor's wife, we headed to her store.
You brought Robertson here. Oh, the Robertson brothers. What's going on with your son and his wife? They're wrecking the place and causing trouble.
As we had a relationship with the proprietor of my favorite cafe, we apologized first and foremost. I am truly sorry. We will take them back right away.
Here you are again.
Next to her, my eldest son clicked his tongue and his wife let out words of annoyance. I felt anger rising, but now the most important thing was to calm the situation.
You're a part of the family with mother-in-law, aren't you? It's rude to mother-in-law.
Even in this situation, the proprietor of my favorite cafe was thinking of us. I was touched by this, but it seemed to irritate my daughter-in-law.
I married Osmond and I don't care about anything else. More importantly, how dare you serve such awful food to your customers? What? You're still talking back? You? My husband restrained the proprietor of my favorite cafe as he was about to lash out, and he deeply apologized on the spot. We're truly sorry. We will come back to apologize for this mistaken behavior. Other customers are here. Please calm down for now. My husband conveyed the words of apology with a sincere attitude. Seeing this, the blood in the proprietor of my favorite cafe's face subsided, and for now, he told us to take my eldest son and his wife back without paying. Then, my husband and I silently took them home and led them to the living room. No sooner had the eldest daughter-in-law sat on the couch than she sighed wearily. The eldest son, seeing her like this, seemed flustered and eager to please her. Do you even realize what you've done? It was her husband who spoke these words, his face expressionless but his tone tinged with anger. Even I, who have been married to him for many years, had never seen him like this before. He looked so frightening that I shivered involuntarily. What do you mean? I just complained about the taste and I simply told them I didn't want to pay for such horrible food. But the daughter-in-law showed no signs of being intimidated. On the contrary, she glared back, insisting she was right. What you two are doing is a gross violation of common decency. The restaurant is run by our dear friends who have always been there for us. So what? It has nothing to do with us. The husband's anger towards his unresponsive daughter-in-law continued to grow. I knew it wasn't right to give in to anger. With that thought, I intervened in their conversation. Nikita, you had our son do the same thing at the supermarket yesterday, didn't you? Are you deliberately making complaints to save money? I voiced my suspicion. Whether it was yesterday or today, what they were doing was clearly out of line. They were harassing people to get something for free. There seemed to be no other explanation for their excessive behavior. Upon hearing this, the daughter-in-law burst into laughter. So much so that tears streamed down her face. My husband and I were taken aback. Mother-in-law, you're smarter than I thought. Who wouldn't want to eat cheaper if they could? Even though her scheme had been uncovered, she kept laughing as if there was nothing wrong. She's insane. I couldn't help but think that. And my husband and I were left speechless. Eating food without trying to save money is just silly. If there's a way to make it cheaper, why doesn't everyone do it? I just don't understand. You are in your right mind, aren't you? Don't you realize this is a crime? Crime, you say. But people rarely call the police because they don't want to ruin their reputation. Most of the time, they give in to our demands to settle things peacefully. You're crazy. Your way of thinking is not sane. Even my normally silent husband was taken aback by her words. And yet, she continued speaking, almost as if mocking him. Yes, maybe I am crazy, but I've been involved in shady activities since I was young, so it doesn't bother me anymore. At this point, I was revealed that she had been a female leader of an outlaw motorcycle gang. She began to tell her life story. I grew up in an institution without knowing my parents. Before I knew it, I was part of a criminal organization. This lifestyle was normal for me, so I never thought it was wrong. She spoke nonchalantly,
and the eldest son seemed to adore her as if worshipping her.
I love strong-willed women like Nikita. I'll do anything Nikita wants.
Osmond, you... The eldest son speaks in despair, captivated by daughter-in-law. He feels utterly regretful, unable to shake off the shame that his child has grown into such an adult. So if you persist any further, even if you're my mother-in-law and her allies, I won't hesitate. This is my final warning. Understand? With those words, my eldest son's wife stood up and he followed her out the door. I tried to stop them, insisting the conversation wasn't over, but my words didn't reach them. My husband and I stood dumbfounded, watching their backs as they left. After that, we tried to contact our eldest son and his wife by phone and visiting their house, but they were coldly dismissed and ignored. Our calls were blocked and we found ourselves alienated from them. From that moment, people in our small town started looking at us differently. Rumors spread quickly here, and being ignored became the norm. If I saw people whispering on the street, I would feel they were talking about me, and I felt cornered. I also went to apologize to the cafe we had troubled, but was asked not to come while we were still associated with our son and his wife, and I was driven out. That night, I was overwhelmed by regret and cried myself to sleep. I sobbed quietly, feeling so wretched that I wished I could disappear. My mental health declined and I was bedridden for days. I was afraid to go out, and my husband took care of all the household chores. Then one day, my husband suggested we go out to change our mood. The proprietor of the steakhouse run by my husband's friend says,
"Please bring your wife with you."
The proprietor of the steakhouse run by my husband's friend is an exclusive club. My husband, who had shared our situation, received an invitation from them. "You've been feeling down. It must be hard. Let's eat something delicious and cheer up." His gentle touch on my back was so loving. I was reminded once again how glad I was to have married him, and I accepted his dinner invitation. I had barely eaten over the past few days and my face was gaunt. I tried to cover it with makeup, but my husband saw through it and told me not to force a smile. With a sense of resignation, we headed to the restaurant. As soon as we arrived, the proprietor of the steakhouse and his wife welcomed us.
"Welcome. We've been expecting you."
"It's been a while. Thank you for taking care of us today."
"Madam, please relax. Our young staff makes an exquisite steak dinner."
The gentle demeanor of the proprietor's wife and the robust presence of the proprietor of the steakhouse were reassuring. I smiled weakly and nodded at their words, noticing my frailty. The wife took my hand and guided me through the immaculately cleaned restaurant, filled with cleanliness.
"Welcome. We've been waiting for you."
The one who greeted us with those words was the head chef of the steakhouse. His energy seemed to lift my downtrodden spirit, and I felt almost overwhelmed by his zeal.
"Today I'm going to put extra effort into making a delicious steak for you."
The cuisine at the steakhouse is truly exquisite. Please make yourself at home and enjoy. The person who greeted us with a smile was the female waitstaff at the steakhouse. Her gentle smile healed my heart, and the smile naturally returned to my face. As I was being treated to a delicious steak, I almost forgot about my eldest son and his wife when,
Hey, how are we going to scam money today?
while on my way to the restroom, I heard a familiar voice from a private room.
It's Dad's friend's restaurant, right? It might be risky here. What are you scared of? This place is no different from the other. Well, yeah, but... Since when did you become such a lame man?
When I see a man without guts, it makes me sick. From the way they spoke and their voice tone, I immediately knew it was my eldest son and his wife in that room. How did they get into this restaurant? As I reached to open the door to the room to ask them, I felt the blood drain from my face as I overheard their conversation. And then I nearly collapsed on the spot.
Ma'am, are you feeling ill?
The head chef of the steakhouse was there to describe the food. I didn't have the time to explain the situation, and I just told him that I wanted to get back to my room. But I was on the verge of collapsing, and walking properly was difficult. Upon telling him this, the head chef of the steakhouse reluctantly made a request.
I'm sorry. It might not be appropriate since you're a lady, but...
Saying it was an emergency, he picked me up and carried me to my room. When he hurriedly brought me to the room, my husband, the wife, and the proprietor of the steakhouse were all there. The wife rushed to my side, surprised and breathless, as the head chef of the steakhouse appeared with me. The head chef of the steakhouse sat me down in a chair and entered the room, ensuring that no one else would overhear.
What happened? Are you okay?
I'm fine. But you... It's a disaster. Osmond and the others.
Osmond and the others? What's going on?
My husband, seeing my pale face, calmly offered me a cup of tea. After sipping the tea and taking a deep breath to calm my heart, I explained the conversation I had overheard earlier.
Come to think of it, a couple by the name of Robertson did come to the restaurant today. What?
I recalled that we had brought Osmond and the others to this restaurant when they got married. At that time, the proprietor of the steakhouse had made a membership card for them since they were our children. So that's how they were able to dine here.
I'm sorry. It's all my fault.
Why are you apologizing, proprietor of the steakhouse? We are the ones who should be sorry.
More importantly, what should we do? It won't be good if they cause a scene in the restaurant.
As everyone was racking their brains over the situation, the head chef of the steakhouse made a suggestion.
How about this?
We couldn't help but feel hesitant upon hearing his suggestion. But that would mean we'd be putting the head chef of the steakhouse in a difficult position.
Don't worry about it. If I can help you ladies, this is a simple thing to do.
The head chef of the steakhouse laughed manly with a gah-ha-ha, and both my husband and I couldn't help but smile back, lowering our brows.
But if you do this, you won't be able to see your son and daughter-in-law for a while.
With a stern look in her eyes, the wife made sure we were committed to our decision. My husband and I looked at each other and nodded slightly.
We don't mind. If you can help, we would like to ask for your assistance. Are you sure about this?
Yes. We can't stop our children on our own. Please, we need your help. When the proprietor of the steakhouse confirmed again, my husband and I both thanked him politely, and so our counterattack against our eldest son and his wife began.
Hey, call the manager!
As expected, the eldest son's wife started screaming in the restaurant, and customers from private rooms began to peek out, wondering what was happening.
I am the head chef of the steakhouse, but
the head chef of the steakhouse rushed over and asked the eldest son and his wife what was wrong.
there was a hair in the soup. How are you going to make up for this rudeness? We've paid good money, so take responsibility.
As always, the eldest son's wife started to complain. The other customers began to murmur, and worried voices could be heard from the staff.
A hair, you say?
But the head chef of the steakhouse did not waver and responded firmly. Upon inspecting the soup with the hair, he seemed to notice something strange.
This hair doesn't belong to any of our employees.
The head chef's cool analysis made the eldest son and his wife look at him in shock. The words piqued the interest of the other customers, and everyone in the restaurant focused on the exchange between the eldest son and his wife and the head chef of the steakhouse.
What basis do you have for saying that? We don't have any staff with dyed hair, and we don't have any female staff with such long hair.
What did you say? The eldest son's wife was taken aback by the head chef's calm observation. But now the eldest son began to complain, following his wife.
Are you accusing us, the customers? Of course not. But if this was intentionally put in by the customer, that would be a serious problem, wouldn't it? Prove that we put it there before you talk like that. If the evidence is found, may I then speak so boldly?
The wife, who had been listening, now stepped forward, followed by the appearance of the proprietor of the steakhouse. The unwavering attitude of everyone made the eldest son and his wife look around in bewilderment.
What you are doing is a crime, you know. It would be wise to know your place before making a bigger fuss, don't you think? What's your problem? Is this how you treat customers at an upscale restaurant?
You're not customers or anything else for that matter. The eldest son's couple, refusing to back down, now faced a verbal volley from my husband. Hearing a familiar voice, the two of them turned towards my husband and me, their faces reflecting confusion.
You again? Why are you here?
That's what we should be saying. This is our dear friend's restaurant.
Stop embarrassing yourselves with this disgraceful behavior. Disgraceful behavior? There was hair in our food. This is a legitimate complaint, and it's absurd for you to criticize us for it.
We know that you deliberately put the hair in there. As I said this, I pointed to the ceiling. There was a black circular device mounted there.
What's that supposed to be?
Don't you know? That's a security camera.
So what about it?
I looked down on the ignorant eldest daughter-in-law, and she openly showed her anger. She glared at me, displaying a defiant attitude, yet still seemed clueless about the camera. The eldest son was the first to understand the situation.
Hey, is that... What? Why are you looking so pale all of a sudden?
Husband seemed to have figured out what it means that there's a security camera.
So? What?
The eldest daughter-in-law's disgust was palpable in the frustrating exchange. Seeing is believing. My husband, thinking it would be faster to show than tell, opened the room door and pointed to the ceiling. There, a security camera had been installed.
That camera is the type that can view in all directions, 360 degrees, right?
Even the eldest daughter-in-law seemed to get it now, her mouth gaping like a goldfish. Her face gradually turned pale.
You can get that hair DNA tested or whatever you like. We're prepared to fight this to the very end.
The proprietor of the steakhouse started threatening the two with a broad smile on his face. Then, the sound of sirens came from outside the restaurant.
What?
Looks like your ride's here.
Our ride? What are you talking about?
The eldest daughter-in-law, her face pale, responded to my words. I spoke coldly, with a full-faced smile. It's time for us to part ways for now.
What do you mean?
A police officer appeared in front of the bewildered couple. He began to surround them, asking for details.
Are you the ones who interfered with this business and are trying to push extortion?
Business interference? What? These people were trying to make false claims at this restaurant, hoping to get a free meal. I interrupted the eldest son's attempt at an excuse, explaining the situation to the police officer. When the eldest son and his wife heard this, they resisted. However, the police officer warned them.
If you say anything more, you'll only make your crime worse.
They instantly calmed down.
At any rate, we'll hear the details at the station. Shall we go together?
We didn't do anything wrong. Give it up. I've already explained the situation to the police officers. Everything you tried to do to frame the shop with your false testimony. You'll also tell them about all the dirty tricks you've pulled up until now. They'll hear everything.
That's right. We'll listen to your story for as long as it takes. Shall we go?
The smiling face of the police officer seemed terrifying even as he smiled. Even the hot-tempered daughter-in-law had no choice but to calm down.
We'll take them now.
Thank you very much. My husband and I thanked the police officer, who gave a slight bow, and when we saw the eldest son and his wife being taken away, a big round of applause erupted inside the restaurant.
That was awesome! Nice performance, head chef of the steakhouse.
I thought we were going to get caught and I panicked. My husband and I could only express our gratitude for the warmth of the regular customers, laughing as they spoke. Head chef of the steakhouse, the wife, the proprietor of the steakhouse. Thank you very much.
No, if it means that the Robertson couple can rest easy, we're more than happy. But it really did turn out just like the head chef of the steakhouse said. I can usually guess what that type of person will do.
I and my husband could only look up in admiration at the head chef of the steakhouse, laughing as he spoke. At that time, the head chef had proposed a plan to provoke the eldest son and his wife.
Our employee has brown hair, and while the camera is a surveillance camera, it doesn't see everything. I was worried about what would happen if they knew. We were leaving it to chance, but I'm glad we were able to handle it.
All thanks to the wife, the proprietor of the steakhouse, and everyone's cooperation. Thank you very much. We were all greeted with warm voices inside the restaurant. The staff explained the situation to the customers, and they all sided with us. If something had happened and the eldest son and his wife had started rampaging, everyone would have acted like actors to help us.
Come on, let's resume our enjoyable meal. Today, we'll provide a service from the shop.
Everyone rejoiced at the thoughtful consideration of the proprietor of the steakhouse, and we all had a great time. After that, the eldest son and his wife were sued by the restaurant and faced a large amount of compensation. It also went to court, and they were likely to receive a prison sentence. Furthermore, it was revealed that they had been fighting with the proprietor of my favorite cafe and had posted a video on social media. They were also sued from that side, and their bad reputation spread so that no one in the town didn't know about the eldest son and his wife. Naturally, it became difficult for them to live in the town, and they had to leave as if fleeing. My husband and I thought about what we could do to repay the proprietor of the steakhouse, and as a result of exploring various options, we decided to promote the two eateries using social media. We got help from a web-savvy acquaintance and both places thrived thanks to our efforts. We managed to rebuild a good relationship with our neighbors, and now we can once again go for tea as a couple. After cutting ties with our eldest son and his wife, my husband and I are now over 80 years old, living healthily. We're so happy every day that we don't even have any interest in what has become of our eldest son and his wife. This incident made us painfully aware, once again, that seeking easy gains will be punished.